It seems that the time has come.
Yes, it certainly has.
Indeed. Push the button, Bum.
Right.
That's the TV remote. Oh, of course. That's the other TV remote. Never mind. I'm going to do it myself. Time has come. Hello and welcome back to Film Reviewer Schulz, where it's again time to look back at what I thought were the best Nostalgia Critic episodes from the previous year. Now, as I had explained in last year's episode on the Nostalgia Critic episodes of 2011, I thought that year started really strong and ended really strong, but in the middle it kind of waned a bit, and episodes were starting to become just sort of okay in the middle there. So I was certainly glad that that year ended successfully, but I was a bit worried in the middle. Well, last year in 2012, I really thought that Doug and Rob really came back in full force, and I felt that they just put a lot more effort into the Nostalgia Critic episodes, and there were a lot of really good ones made last year, which was appropriate in the end since, as it turned out, with Boldly Flee and all that, it was originally supposed to be the end of the Nostalgia Critic. So if this had actually been the official final year, as it was for a couple of months there, it would have been a very good high note to end on, so I certainly applaud both the Walkers for that. So obviously there were a lot of really good episodes to choose from last year, so let's see the top 11 best Nostalgia Critic episodes of 2012. Number 11. The top 11 Simpsons episodes. Now, I had mentioned in last year's list how I really liked the top 11 list that Doug does, because they really allow him to give a more professional criticism on something, and also to, review something positive on the Nostalgia Critic once, and this list is no exception. Now, odd as it might seem, I actually did not grow up watching The Simpsons, and actually haven't seen that many full episodes of the show. But even for someone who's not that familiar with the show, I still thought Doug did a very good job on his list, citing a lot of different reasons as to why each episode got on there, having a wide variety of episodes on the list, and even having personal experience as to why an episode can mean so much to him to put it on the list. And overall, I just think yet another good use of Doug's critiquing skills and a really good good tribute to a show that has meant so much for so many. Number 10, Heavy Metal. Well, as I had mentioned in the intro, there were a number of really good crossovers done in the year, and this was one that was done, I believe, a few weeks before, they started, coming out really back-to-back from each other, and it's a really good example of why these crossover reviews work so well. Now, this was the first review that I'd seen Diamanda Hagen in, and I think it was a really good blend of her and Doug's styles. I mean, it was already the perfect topic, this bizarre cult 80s animated film. It's Diamanda Hagen's usual really weird and usually obscure fare, and Doug just sort of in general being weirded out by the whole thing while also finding some occasional good things to say about it, and so it was a really good episode just because it was a good mix of both reviewers' style and just a very interesting look at such a strange film in general. Plus, there's a flying car in space.
Sorry, Amanda, can't talk. I'm on a giant flying car in space. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo!
Number 9. Star Trek Insurrection. Yes, actually, I think it is a coincidence that the 9th film on the list is the 9th Star Trek film. I wasn't trying to make a correlation there. Well, really, from day one of Doug's Star Trek month, him and the fans had already been anticipating that there would eventually be a Linkara crossover in there somewhere, and so it was fitting that he would pick the grand conclusion of the month to do this crossover review with him. And so, you know, we get the usual, there's some nice con footage of Doug with the attendants and also another nice appearance by that sci-fi guy who had earlier appeared in the Star Trek 3 review and would eventually get his own official crossover review and Total Recall. So with this review, Linkara was able to analyze it from a bigger Star Trek fan perspective, and Doug was able to more analyze it just as a film there, and so a funny use of sci-fi guy, even though he wasn't able to do anything, and just overall a very funny conclusion to Star Trek month.
Well, I think...
Got in the corner!
Number 8. Poinyo. Well, I mean, for the Critic's 200th episode, you know, he had to do another big event sort of thing, and so this was a very nice sort of change of pace than usual. I mean, well, you know, again, he was able to utilize the convention setting for this special event, and the fact that he was reviewing something that he actually liked, but he could still make fun of, you know, that's always nice to see. I mean, it doesn't always happen often. And, you know, he was able to work in some funny cameos by other more anime-centric people like Little Karibo, Spike Spencer, and Uncle Yo in there. And, I mean, just discussing the oddity of the film itself.
That was weird.
Although, I do have to say I thought maybe the whole gag of just beating up the Nostalgia Critic because he chose to review this movie itself, that might have been a bit overdone. You know, I mean, it wasn't like the very first time that Doug has done a positive review of a movie on the Nostalgia Critic, or even just an okay review of a movie on the Nostalgia Critic, so I don't know, that might have been a little overdone, because I mean, we've already seen, you know, the Nostalgia Critic be able to give a positive review on something, able to review films that are mostly good but still laugh at them as well. So, I don't know. But aside from that, it was all overall a very good review and a good marker for the 200th episode of the show itself.
Not like that movie Howl's Moving Castle.
What?
Ponyo, 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 fishy in the sea.
Number 7. Mr.Magoo. And, you know, I don't mind the original Mr. Magoo cartoons. It's true, you know, there is really only one joke played out in various different circumstances, but I think it works, mostly because of, you know, Jim Backus's funny, rambling sort of turn as Magoo all the time. He just rambles on throughout his travelings. I think it kind of works because of that. However, you know, even before I'd even seen any Mr. Magoo cartoons, actually, I had seen the live-action Mr. Magoo film, and yeah, that was pretty forced and unfunny, and poor, waste of Leslie Nielsen. And Malcolm McDowell and Ernie Hudson and, you know, pretty much everyone else. I don't really think about it. Although, at least, you know, I had rented it from Blockbuster, but I had also thankfully rented Airplane and saw that for the first time that evening too. So, at least I was able to see a good Leslie Nielsen comedy. Anyway, so yeah, I had seen this movie years ago, and Doug did make a reference to it amongst Leslie Nielsen's lesser comedies all the way back in his Surf Ninjas review, and so really, since then, you know, I myself, along with most of the other fans, you know, we've been really wanting him to bash on this film, and so that's why I just really like this review, because it's just so good to finally see him do it, and he was able to get a lot of good, you know, funny material out of this. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's just sort of the perfect example of like a forced Disney comedy from the 90s, really, and, you know, a good example of how a cartoon doesn't necessarily translate to live action.
Oh, he mistook something for something else. Well, let's hope that joke doesn't get old real quick.
Which, of course, would not be the first one that he'd end up reviewing since last year. And then, of course, it all climaxed at the very end with a very good joke. I'll be discussing that later, of course, you know, with Rob involved. And so overall, it's just a very nice, funny episode on a film that, you know, we've been waiting a while to see him get to. And
Yeah, because if there's anything every opera performance needs with the sensitivity of the singer's voices, it's a giant, loud, hard-to-control wind machine! Why don't all opera houses have this?
Oh, Doug, you've done it again. Number 6. Star Trek V. Well, you know, I mean, overall, yeah, Star Trek month was very funny. I know it started with 1 and then 3, and, you know, those were pretty good. At least those had a couple of positive things you could say about them. But then we get to the infamous 5th film. William Shatner directed, and oh boy.
Will Shatner have the same luck as he takes over directing the next one? Well, that depends. Do you like ladies over 50 years old doing a half-naked fan dance? Hopefully you answered no.
Well, okay, besides the possibility of a Linkar crossover, you know, besides that, this was probably one of the most anticipated films that he would get to in Star Trek month, and he definitely delivered on this one. I mean, it's just, you know, so much of it just already sets itself up for so much good joke material, and
There's nothing amazing about it. I know this ship like the back of my hand.
it was just a really good riff on a film that, of course, had it coming.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 lightly down the stream.
Everybody! Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, merrily, merrily.
Number 5. Thomas and the Magic Railroad. So, well, okay, first of all, I should mention that, you know, I did grow up actually watching Thomas the Tank Engine on PBS, and as a matter of fact, I actually did happen to see this film when I was a kid, but I don't remember anything about it, really. Not to mention, I don't necessarily recall the show that vividly either, so really, there wasn't all that much. So I didn't at all get upset by Doug's review by this, and I considered it one of the best reviews from last year, and I mean, eventually Doug put it on his top best Nostalgia Critics ever, and I think it is really good. I mean, there's so much, you know, just the general oddity of the Thomas show that translated to the screen.
Come on, I can do better. Watch! Say, Gordon, I was just wondering why we live in a town called Sodor. Is that a retirement home for Lord of the Ring villains? I'm just trying to put together how we procreate. I mean, do trains have sperm? Goodness gracious me.
Then that's somehow still less creepy than what you're doing!
And all, the various styles of acting, whether appropriate or not for the film, are all three of the lead, Peter Fonda, Alec Baldwin, and, of course, Mara Wilson, who would, of course, return with a vengeance, but we'll get to that later.
I don't usually say this, but we'd understand if you don't put your all into it. I mean, why can't you be more like...
It is a very important day.
Well, maybe not like this. Yes, if Peter Fonda is too miserable in this movie, then Alec Baldwin is far too happy.
And certainly, I mean, if nothing else, this review did give us sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
Sparkle, sparkle, man. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. That's some shit.
Number 4, Scooby-Doo. Now, of course, like many, I grew up with the, original 60s, Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo show, and, it's very spin-offs, and made for TV films, and later direct-to-video films, and, all that, so I was a big fan of the show, of course, and then, yes, the live-action film came out, and, yeah, eventually I did see it, and I kind of still think it's okay. I mean, it's not really that successful a blend of the original show and kind of off-putting, edgier humor.
This movie was intended for children, right?
I don't think it was meant for anybody.
But, I mean, it's pretty fun. Actually, there's a number of humorous bits that Doug left out of the review. Well, first of all, I think Rowan Atkinson actually did help carry the film. He did have some pretty amusing moments here and there, and there were just side characters like the creepy bald guy, or a character actually Doug completely skipped over in the review. The voodoo guy was sacrificing a dead chicken, and yeah, it did have a pretty good, interesting production design there. I don't know. But anyway, all that regardless, well, I mean, this came out and it was originally, the final episode of the Nostalgia Critic. I mean, we were thinking, it was supposed to be the final episode. People were thinking, well, maybe, he should have done something, more nostalgic than, the film from 2002. But, overall, Doug really made it work. I mean, he was able... Well, first of all, Doug did a really great thing of having his present self, his younger self, and his older self all reviewing the film. And that was just a really interesting connection. And, Doug played all three very well and made them, very good chemistry amongst the different versions of the critic there. And then...
We best watch this movie together, critic. Something tells me that all of the answers to our questions may be in this film.
Oh, trust me, this film has no answers.
Speak for yourself, Narc.
Oh, shut up, you pretentious little...
Hey, don't make me split myself apart.
He started it, Narc.
And then having, bringing Orlando back as Roger from the Christmas special, that was really good. It's always great to see Orlando again. Again, very good performance by him. And overall, the review of the film was very funny, pointing out various things here and there from his various different parts of his life. And then, just the ending of Alone, this being, what was supposed to have been the end of the Nostalgia Critic, and I think, Doug gave it a really good ending. Well, I mean, the ending for the show, of course, the ending for the character in To Boldly Flee, that was also really well done, too. And then, but, the final scene, there, it does allow for a trio of a couple of very funny cameos and some return appearances from characters, but also it's just really a crowning moment of heartwarming there at the end. it really does make you feel for the character. I mean, and to think over 200 episodes or so, and then finally this was going to be the end. It was a really well done attempt at, the final episode. Of course now, as we know, it has come back and continued, and I think it's better, fresher, and funnier than ever, and really well produced, and increased production design and effort and effects and all that. But for what was to have been the final episode, it would have still been a really good final note for the critic to have ended on. Number 3, The Wiz. Now, of course, in the weeks right before the Scooby-Doo review, which, of course, as I said, was to have been the last, Doug had been doing a whole bunch of crossovers, to the point where it was, like, pretty much every single week there was a crossover. Now, that might have been a bit of an overload of crossovers, but, still, they were all well done. Doug had really good chemistry with all of the various other producers, whether they were in the same place or not, is filmed separately. And this one, I think, is really one of the best ones last year. I mean, Critic with his cynicism.
Maybe instead of a heart, you should ask the Wiz for a singing voice.
And then Todd, also a cynicism, but he seems to have more of an upbeat attitude throughout the review.
We're off to annoy the critic, Nostalgia Critic, and let's watch the movie.
And seeing the two of them together, they had really good chemistry together. And of course the film, going back more to the 70s, so it is, even more of a nostalgic cult classic. I mean, Doug had started to be reviewing more recent films, so going back then, that was in a good change of pace. And, overall, I mean, I don't know, I didn't think too much of The Wiz itself, even though a lot of other people seemed to. So it was good to see I wasn't alone in not necessarily thinking the film version was inadequate. Of course, there were a couple of funny cameos at the beginning and end, and utilizing the con setting again to have the two reviewers in the same spot. And actually, I think I was saying the whole thing was done in like 24 hours, so that's really an impressive feat. And the fact that the episode came out so good, that is quite impressive, I must say. So just overall a really good crossover review that really brought two completely different critics together. So it was really nice to see.
Because the Wiz is a person in your neighborhood. In your neighborhood. In your neighborhood.
Number 2, Patch Adams. I think this might have been like the very next big review to have come out after Star Trek month, and it was a very good welcome return to form. I mean, it's just yet another bad Robin Williams film for Doug to look in. I mean, in fact, it's interesting how Doug really looked into the actual Patch Adams' life and comparing it to the film. But even when not, even just finding the film itself, even without looking at the actual facts of the man's life, just how it succumbs to cliches, the typical of biopics, and just the way he's able to show how this film just does not come together right. And I mean, it's great to see Doug sticking up for a upstanding real life person like this, and seeing their life used for cheap and sentiment like this. I mean, Doug did a really good job covering this film. I think it's one of the best. His use of jokes just really worked. And of course, I mean, he came up with a really funny character to combat against the movie. I mean, even though unfortunately he died at the end of the review, but no, oh well. Spoilers, sorry. And I think, again, this was also another one that ended up on Doug's best of list, maybe. I mean, you know, it was just a really good way for Doug to review the films.
The orthodox levels on this are most
And the number one best Nostalgia Critic episode of 2012 was A Simple Wish. Now, I just want to make it clear, this is not just because of the ending of the review, which was epic, but all before that, I mean, this was just another perfectly done Nostalgia Critic episode. It's a perfectly good riff and review on showing the film. Even though he was still able to find a couple of positive things to say about it, but just, you know, his use of jokes, I mean, a couple of returning jokes, but most of all, just, you'll find that just the strangeness of this film enabling and just, you know, able to make perfectly delivered zingers, or when the film itself just gets weird. I mean, does it? And then...
Yes. When has a woman offering an apple ever led to any unpleasantness in past literature?
It all just climaxes to, like, one of the best ever endings of the Nostalgia Critic. I mean, even possibly they're better than, like, you know, maybe even the ending from Garbage Pail Kids, or even, I don't know, I mean, and of course it introduced a wonderful new recurring guest on the site, and just overall, I think it delivered everything that a good Nostalgia review needs. I mean, all just came together in the right spots when it needed to be.
Okay, that doesn't happen, despite how nice that would be.
So, that was the top 11 best Nostalgia Critic episodes of last year. Well, alright, you should know the drill by now from last year. Now it's time to look at the top 11 best jokes from the Nostalgia Critic of last year. Number 11. Now, this from the Star Trek Insurrection review was mostly what I was saying, you know, part of why the episode was so good. I mean, since the beginning of Star Trek month, there had been the epic build-up to Linkara eventually getting a crossover, and so, at the very start of the review, Doug just gave us the perfect way of getting to the crossover.
So I just want to say, everybody, thank you so much.
Nostalgia Critic? Sci-fi guy. What are you doing?
It's him.
Who?
Linkara.
Lower your voice, sci-fi guy.
He can smell geek. My God. Linkara. Why, in Star Trek circles, he's known simply as Linkara.
Yes, the ultimate Star Trek nerd. He has heard about my Star Trek month. He wants to do a crossover review with me on Star Trek Insurrection. But I won't let him. No, no, no. All his stupid little nitpickiness that nobody cares about is not going to spoil my review. And I have found a perfect hiding spot. He will never look for me here. Funny, I kind of thought something would happen while we were laughing there.
Yeah, like we'd be interrupted or...
Yeah, like someone would interrupt our laughing. Yeah.
So you want some coffee?
That'd be lovely, thank you, yes. Yes. Right. Might as well see what's on the television.
Hello, critic. Start the review.
Last time in the good Star Trek movie.
Number 10. Now, I mean, as I had said, the Simple Wish review I thought was the best from last year, and this is definitely one of the examples why, Doug using a very good use of the cutaway gag sketch, and just a wonderful bit of commenting on, the rather absurd name of one of the production companies on the film, and also a good way of working in a well-timed running gag.
So you know this movie's in trouble when you find one of the main sponsors is the Bubble Factory. You ever wonder if it's actually like a legitimate bubble factory? If so, you gotta wonder how that meeting went.
Alright, people, we already know that the Build-A-Bear Workshop has had great success financing Terminator 2, so I say we go into financing movies. Let's see, we got this Mara Wilson fairy tale, or a movie about the sinking of the Titanic. Alright, that's a downer. Let's go with the Mara Wilson fairy tale.
Fucking bubble!
And who is that guy?
Number 9. Now, from the Mr.Magoo review, as I had pointed out, it came to a very funny and epic conclusion, all thanks to Rob doing a fine Mr. Magoo voice.
If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna do the worst thing I can think of. Bludgeon an old blind man to death. I'm the Nostalgia Critic, I remember it, so you don't have to.
It's time for another day of doing nothing at the canned vegetable factory.
Alright, you old bastard, you're gonna pay for that movie!
What do we have here? Looks like the Nostro Critic.
Hey!
What? No, didn't think I could see, did you? I'm just playing it up for the handicap sticker in my car. I can see everything. Perfect 20/20 vision. I can even see the blood as it spurts out your nose. There it is. Delicious, yummy blood. Most people don't know that I'm actually quite a psychopath. They call me crazy, Mr. Nostro Critic. But would a crazy man strangle an orphan girl because he thinks she's queen of the moon people? Yes, he would. What do we have here? It's a pitchfork with your ass's name on it. Here, let me give it back to you. You like that?
Although one thing at the end that Rob probably should have done the "Oh Magoo, you've done it again" catchphrase. But oh well. Number 8. And from the Wiz review, which, again, I had said was one of the best crossovers, and this another good comment on, some of the absurd blocking in the film by then having it apply to the very crossover review itself.
Well, you know the scene in the original movie of Dorothy and her friends skipping down the yellow brick road is just so iconic and amazing, but I've got this great idea about how to improve it. Why don't we film this scene 300 feet away and point the camera at their fucking backs? I don't need to see their faces, just their backs! That's right, no camera motion, just hold it, completely still.
In fact, what are we doing so close to this camera? Why don't we just move to that far corner? Now, this is how you do a review.
You know what, actually? Let's see if we can get it even further away. Further. Further.
A close-up, you jerk! A close-up!
Number 7. For Digimon the movie, again, a very requested film, and so This build-up to Doug's guest reviewer was quite appropriate for the beginning of the review. Plus, another funny cameo in there as well.
What am I supposed to say about a show I don't know / care anything about? And yet everybody's asking me to do it. There's only one person that can help me out with this. God damn it, there's no clouds out! When the hell would that ever happen? God damn it, it's during the day! Tap dancing crap! The time has come.
Are we invading another micronation?
God damn it, what do you want?
It says Joe in the sky.
No, it doesn't. It says J-O.
Yeah, that spells Joe.
Fuck it. Do you have Jesse Otaku's number?
Yeah?
Can you text it to me?
Not until I get a Joe signal in the sky.
I deserve a Joe signal, critic.
Oh, Cube, someday we'll rule this world together. We just need to fix your ears first. Hello?
Hey, look outside.
Yeah?
You see that incredibly expensive spotlight being pointed in the sky?
Yeah, I thought that was for Angry Joe, actually.
I'm doing Digimon. You want to help or not?
Number 6. Now, from Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Yeah, of course, there was Sparkle, 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 and that has become a well-known phrase now and a bit of a running gag, but yeah, there was even a funnier part. Now, it all had to do with Doug's just delivery and performance of this moment that really helped sell it as the best moment from that review for me.
Did you put all this here for me? But you must have known that I was coming. How kind of you.
Am I Alec Baldwin's delusion? Is this all Alec Baldwin's delusion?
Number 5. From the Patch Adams review, as I was saying, just the great, wonderful inclusion of this character, where, you know, being able to help point out, you know, the failings of the film itself, and Doug giving a wonderfully funny performance here.
So, the doctor says I should be fine, though, as long as I get plenty of rest and relaxation.
Ow! Oh, don't you know the cure for anything, anywhere is laughter? Oh, who are you? I'm Dr. Bitch Spasms, and I'm here to make you laugh. Oh,
but I don't want to laugh. I want to get better.
Well, laughter's the best medicine.
No, medicine's the best medicine.
Oh, what? You don't trust a doctor who looks like this?
No, I don't.
Look, a red nose. It's funny.
No, it isn't.
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 Ow!
Yeah, it's Patch Adams, everybody. Oh yeah, that's a rational response, and not some contrived screenwriting device.
Ow! Oh, you see? I connected with you.
No, you did! You hit me in the face!
Wait for it.
You know, I'm really regretting writing this character.
Oh, you conformist! Don't you know that the answer to anything is...
Don't worry, he's not a reoccurring character. I'm the Nostalgia Critic, I remember it, so you don't have to!
Oh!
Number 4. Now, from his review of another cult classic, Santa Claus the Movie, which of course was one of his Christmas reviews, but he wasn't able to put it up until, you know, the beginning of January, so it does count for last year. Anyway, this just, you know, well, first of all, this wonderful, you know, notion that Doug had thinking about this, and then just, you know, the voices he did over the clips just really helped, really sell this moment. Just helped really, sell this particular moment from the review.
Am I the only one who finds this a little threatening at times? I mean, granted, these people did save them from death, but then they're like,
You live here now, right? You deliver toys for all eternity.
I didn't agree to this.
You will live forever.
I have some questions about all.
Or we could throw you out in the snow to die. Would you like that better?
No.
All right then. Get to work, slave. We're not paying you anything.
Number 3. From his Signs review, this was really the best part of the review, as Doug himself has said. And I mean, it even got into the top list of Nostalgia Critic moments for Doug himself. So, it really does help Doug and his, subtitles help, bring down what was probably supposed to be, dramatic, intended in the film, but was rendered hilarious anyway.
seriously, I'd give anything to see what these aliens are saying when they actually do start their attack.
Do you know what happened when you were born, Morgan? You came out, and your mama kept bleeding. So the doctors rushed you out of the room before I even had time to see you.
They're on the roof.
While they were fixing her up, all she kept asking about was you.
They're in the house.
I wanted your mama to see you first. Because she had dreamed about you her whole life. And she got feeling better. They brought you in. And they placed you in her arms. And she looked at you. And you looked at her. And you just stared at each other for the longest time. And then she said real soft, "Hello, Morgan. I'm your mama. You look just how I dreamed."
Oh boy. Number 2. Now this moment from his Super Babies, Baby Geniuses 2 review, this was definitely, I think, well, of course, at the end, with Parental Floss and Uncle Yo, and then Team 4-Star reading 50 Shades of Grey and all that's all fine and good, but didn't really have anything to do with the review. And in fact, Parental Floss and Uncle Yo, it's great to see them again, but they didn't really contribute to the review of the film itself. But then this, great moment happened, involving all 3 of them, which was good because otherwise, Doug's, in his comatose state narrating, and then Parental Floss and Uncle Yo are on the other side. But they don't really interact with each other for the majority of the view, except for this moment in the middle, which was just a great use. Putting all 3 of them together in this situation, and then a good use of the fans in the convention setting again as well.
Oh crap, the critic's got a panel in like 2 minutes! Stop that! We can't let him wander around the hallways like this! What are we gonna do?
Oh, and that's why I showed my balls in Suburban Nights, and once again I deeply apologize for it. Any other questions?
What's your favorite review?
Oh, that would have to be the Moulin Rouge review with that fantastic Parental Floss cameo. That man is a genius,
Although, on second thought, I do remember having much more fun directing my Ponyo review with that wonderful anime comedian Uncle Yo, that devilish handsome deviant who looks better in a tie than I do.
No, thinking more clearly about it, I think it is definitely Moulin Rouge.
But when I get less retarded momentarily, I remember Ponyo was a far better review, better video,
No.
much better.
Does that answer your question?
No?
Tough!
And the number one best Nostalgia Critic joke from 2012. Well, again, this may be obvious. In fact, Doug himself voted this as his favorite joke from the moment from the Nostalgia Critic. I mean, just the epic conclusion of Mara Wilson's wrath at the end of the Simple Wish review. I mean, again, I said it was one of the most epic conclusion to a Nostalgia Critic episode ever. I mean, it's just a great use of a guest star. Apart from the crossovers, and I mean, it introduced Mara Wilson to the, Channel Awesome site. It's good that she's, taken part in this and other projects from Channel Awesome. So, and it's just, just flat out a hilarious ending.
But I'm sorry, I'm just not a fan of her movies. I mean, it's like everything Mara Wilson touched back then just turned to crap. I mean, look at her, with her couch, her modern-day haircut, her 25-ish-year-old body, her vengeful eyes that seem to be looking directly at me right now.
Hello, critic.
Mara Wilson?
I heard you've been saying some pretty nasty things about me.
Oh, hey, forget it, Missy. You knew what you were doing back then as a kid. If you didn't want people like me making fun of your work, you wouldn't have chosen so many crappy movies. I don't care how old you were.
So you think kids should be held accountable for what they film, no matter what their age?
Damn right, sister!
Because I came across some interesting videos from a little town called Bothell, Washington.
Bothell, Washington?
Yes, of a certain internet critic who made movies when he was a young lad.
You're bluffing. You don't really have those videos.
Roll the film.
I'm in Humpty Dumpty.
Ah, isn't it wonderful?
Oh my god, I thought I had these burned!
I'll tell you what the problem is. We are aliens.
Just look at those performances. So restricted, so reserved, truly the epitome of subtlety.
Shut up.
And just look at those glasses. Only a true master of character would wear something so hideously embarrassing. You're a regular Daniel Day-Lewis.
Shut up!
And how brave of you to go with those braces. Tell me, was it meant to look like your teeth were eating over them?
Shut up!
The acne is a nice touch, too. I bet you purposely never showered just to get that effect.
It was Seattle during the grunge era, none of us did!
Oh, and you must have been a fan of my work. We have the exact same hairstyle.
Damn you, Mara Wilson! Unnatural, unkind!
Oh, and how did some of that dialogue go?
No.
It was brilliant writing.
You wouldn't dare.
Totally unforgettable.
Mara, please!
Ah, now I remember.
I like wearing women's clothing. It is fun.
No, damn it! No, you didn't see that! Turn it off! Turn it off!
Oh, yay, the Daily Night!
Oh! My god, how could you be so heartless? How could you be so cruel? Unholy she-demon!
Well, so long, critic. I'm sure now that the public have seen your brilliant choices as a child, they'll be just as accepting as you were of mine.
So, that was what I thought were the best Nostalgia Critic jokes from last year. I'm film reviewer Schulz, and
One more day till revolution. We will nip it in the bud. We will take these f***ing schoolboys. They will wet themselves
One